I started realizing something a few years ago. The foods that used to feed large families for generations are the exact foods people barely know how to cook anymore: beans, whole grains, whole chickens. And honestly, I understand why. Life got busy, women got overwhelmed, convenience food became normal. And dinner still keeps showing up every single day, which honestly feels rude sometimes. This is the Joyfully Prepared podcast, and I'm your host, Wendy Bergen. Lately, as grocery prices keep climbing, I've been thinking about the way I grew up. My mom cooked every single meal for us. No kidding. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. During school, she was up before we were. Obviously, she woke us up typically, and she would be in the kitchen with some breakfast ready for us to eat before we went to school. She packed all our lunches. She cooked every meal, every dinner, everything. And now that I'm an adult, that sounds absolutely exhausting. And my mom is truly a saint and a hero. And we weren't eating fancy food either. We had a pretty normal rotation of meals most families probably had back then, and what I have now, and probably what you have. Things like spaghetti and meat sauce, chicken and dumplings, macaroni and cheese, meatloaf, things like that. She cooked, though. And somehow my mom fed all of us without grocery pickup, meal delivery apps, or 17 different snack categories. Meanwhile, sometimes I stare into my fridge like it personally betrayed me. One of the things that my mom taught me was how to cook a whole chicken. She did the cooking in the house, but I would watch her and I would make the same kind of food she did, especially for my family. But before I got married, I owned my own little townhouse. And I bought a whole chicken, or somebody gave it to me. I don't remember exactly how I got a hold of this little chicken. And I called my mom and I'm like, I don't know how to cook this chicken. And she said, "Well, you're gonna put it in a dish, like a baking dish, and usually you have a roasting pan, but I didn't have one." And she taught me this super cool hack. If you don't have a roasting pan, take canning jar rings and put them under the chicken, 4 of them, and it raises the chicken up just enough so it doesn't sit down and touch the dish, the bottom of the dish. And voila, that was like such a winner. Really kind of felt like starter homestead, you know what I mean? And when I eventually had 7 kids, I used to use every single bit of meat that was on a chicken. Hands down, I did. Nothing got wasted. One chicken became tacos, soup, chicken and dumplings, sandwiches, broth. I used every single bit of that meat because we needed to. Because when money is tight, food stretches differently. And honestly, some of the most useful preparedness skills I've ever learned were really just old kitchen skills. The hacks, the skills, you name it. They're not glamorous, they're not trendy, and they're just practical. Like learning how to cook dry beans, which I resisted for years because I thought dry beans were basically apocalypse decorations. You just have to have beans, beans and wheat. You have to have them. Well, I never really learned. My mom did make them, but I never learned to cook them. I used to sneak pureed beans into spaghetti sauce like a financially stressed ninja. My kids hate beans. I would say 4 out of the 7 hate beans, something like that. I don't know if it's a majority or not, but they don't like beans. I've talked about this before. They don't like beans, and beans are so good for you. They are packed full of protein and fiber and other wonderful nutrients. So what I would do is I would actually, this is before I knew how to cook the dry beans, so I would buy a can of beans and I would puree it in the blender, the white beans, the cannellini beans, and then I would put it into the spaghetti sauce and mix it up, and nobody knew. It made it thicker. The kids never noticed. I even used to put beans in brownies, which sounds illegal, but here we are. But truly, these little skills matter. Not because we're trying to become perfect homesteaders, because that's impossible, but because learning how to use basic ingredients creates options. Preparedness creates options. Options create peace, right? I've talked about that a ton. I think a lot of us grew up eating beans regularly without even realizing it. Chili, baked beans, bean soup, refried beans. But somewhere along the way, we stopped cooking dry beans at home. And honestly, I think part of it is because nobody taught us how. You buy the bag, you stare at the bag stares back. Now what? What are you doing with those beans? Nothing. Questions like how long do you soak them? Do you have to soak them? Why are they still crunchy after an hour? Why do some people become extremely passionate about instant pots during bean conversations? I'm one of those people. It's a lot. And really, I think women carry so much invisible stress around food already, not just cooking, planning, budgeting, shopping, storing, organizing, remembering what everybody will actually eat. Gosh, I remember one of my kids wouldn't eat chicken and dumplings. She just didn't like them, and that's okay, but all my other kids liked it, and so I felt badly that this one child probably wouldn't enjoy her meal, but on the other hand, another child wouldn't like whatever else I would make, and so it was always kind of this juggling act when it came to dinner. And I grew up with the tradition or the attitude that, you're going to eat what's on your plate. And I agree with that. I don't think that we need to be making a million different meals for our families just because one doesn't like something. The one child who didn't like chicken and dumplings, sometimes she would eat it, sometimes she wouldn't. Sometimes I was okay with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It wasn't like she was being snotty about it. So I think we have to be compassionate towards our family, and the children need to be respectful as well, but there can be some give and take there. Typically, all the mental load falls on the mom. Which is really kinda wild if you think about it. Like, somehow we became the full-time managers of nutrition, inventory, budgeting, emotional support, and restaurant services. No wonder everyone's tired. We are so tired. And the hard part is most moms genuinely want to feed their families well, healthy food, but time and energy don't always cooperate with that desire, especially when kids are picky, like I said. Sometimes that means blending beans into spaghetti sauce because your children apparently believe that visible beans are a hate crime. And honestly, I regret nothing. Because one of the things preparedness taught me is that flexibility matters more than perfection. Okay, if you've never cooked dry beans before, let me make this ridiculously simple. Next time you're at the grocery store, grab a 1 pound bag of pinto beans. Just start with it. It's a nice basic bean. If you go to the Dollar Tree, dollar store, it's going to be whatever it is nowadays, $1.25, something like $1.50. Usually they're under $2, which honestly feels a little suspicious in this economy. Suspicious. When you get home, you have your bag of beans. You're not going to stare at it. You're going to open it up, pour them into the bowl, and quickly look for any tiny rocks, any broken beans, any little weird ones. Sometimes they get a little shriveled up and a little weird. Pick those out and throw them away. And then you're going to rinse the beans off. I put them in a bowl. Once I pick those out, then I fill that bowl and the beans up with water, and I swish the beans around and rinse them off and pour those through a colander. Okay. After I do that, I pour them back and rinse the bowl out, put them back into the bowl, and cover the beans with several inches of water because you're going to soak them and they actually expand a lot. Then you're gonna leave them soaking overnight or for about 8 to 12 hours. So you can even start them in the morning and let them sit all day if you're gonna eat them for dinner that night. When they're done soaking this 8 to 12 hours, you're going to drain them again, pour them into a colander, drain out that soaking water, rinse the beans again, and now this is where the Instant Pot or the pressure cooker comes in. I'm gonna talk about that for just a minute. I love the Instant Pot for beans. I'm just gonna say it, I become that person. Put the beans, the rinsed off beans, they're soaked and rinsed, put them in the Instant Pot, and then you're gonna cover them with about 1 to 2 inches of water. They don't need a lot of water, actually. Put the lid on, screw it down, whatever, get it ready, and then you're gonna put it to pressure cook for 0 minutes. Yes, 0, which feels fake, but it works. I promise. I tested this so many times. I taught a bean class believe it or not, and I practiced figuring out how to easily cook beans, and this is the easiest way. 0 minutes. Just push 0 and then click pressure cook and let it go, and it'll hit it and come right back down. After that, let the pressure naturally release for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then carefully release the rest manual. You push that little lever and it spurts, the steam out. That's it. Once the pressure comes down, remove the lid. Now you have a big batch of cooked beans. Now, in this case, they are not seasoned at all. They've just been cooked in water. You can add seasoning to the water. You can cook them in broth, chicken broth, or beef broth, whatever you want. But this is just the basic way to cook beans. So now you can make tacos, chili, soup, rice bowls, refried beans. You can even put them into like smaller servings and freeze them for later. One little less than $2 bag of beans can feed a family multiple times. That's powerful. And what a blessing to know how to do that. It's that super simple. Yes, you can cook beans on the stove as well, and I'll leave a recipe on how to do that in my show notes. Now, I remember years ago, I think I had 4 children on the ground and 1 inside. I would still have 2 more that were just little twinkles in my eye at the time. I had 4 on the ground, 1 inside. And our financial situation was really, really difficult. I it was just it was just difficult, and a friend and mentor of mine suggested that I would make homemade wheat bread for my kids. And I remember thinking at the time something along the lines of, "Excuse me, sister, respectfully, I'm trying to survive." Because when you're overwhelmed financially, learning new skills can feel like one more burden, right? But over time, I started realizing something important. The foods that helped families survive hard season historically were usually simple foods. Like I said at the beginning, whole grains, beans, soup, bread, stretching ingredients carefully. But once I learned how to actually use whole grains, they stopped feeling intimidating. They became very useful. They're affordable, just like beans, flexible and comforting because you can do so much with them. And honestly, there's something deeply satisfying about learning how to make food from basic ingredients. I'm just going to come back and say learning how to make good, satisfying, comforting, rustic, historically delicious food is such a gift and a skill. It really is. Not in a perfectionistic way, more in a way of, "Oh, we can take care of ourselves better than I realized." Like, I can literally use my food storage to cook and take care of my family. That's what the food storage is for. And having long-term food in your storage, beans and whole grains are known for being able to be stored properly for up to 30 years, grain even longer. That's a very powerful feeling, which is one reason I created my Joyful Grain Method guide because I wanted to make whole grains feel approachable for normal, busy people. Not complicated, not all or nothing, just simple, practical ways to start. And I'll link that in my show notes as well. One of the biggest mindset shifts preparedness gave me was realizing preparedness isn't just storing food. It's creating systems that make life easier later. For example, learning to can meat completely changed my kitchen rhythm. Even something as simple as cooking extra ground beef ahead of time or freezing shredded chicken in meal portions helped so much. Because some nights the hardest part of dinner isn't cooking, it's starting, right? Like, I don't even want to do this. It's the mental energy, and having food ready removes so much stress from my evenings. And that's why I love food storage, not because I'm expecting zombies, the zombie apocalypse. I just know life gets hard sometimes. It gets busy, unexpected things happen. People get sick, money gets tight, schedules get chaotic, friends go through difficult seasons, and having food on hand creates breathing room. I can't tell you how many times having pantry ingredients or freezer meals allowed me to quickly help somebody else? A new mom, a sick friend, someone grieving, a family overwhelmed by life. Let me tell you just a quick story. When I lived in New Jersey, I had a good friend, and her husband worked in one of the Twin Towers. And on September 11th, 2001, I heard that he was in one of the towers when the attacks happened. We didn't know if he was safe or not. And so I didn't know what to do. It wasn't my family that was happening, but what I chose to do was to make a quick meal for my friend and her family. I even have brownie mixes in my food storage because everybody needs brownies. Cake mixes are helpful, Oreos. You need to have some of that in there. I took the meal over to her and and it was well received, very well received. Other friends were there taking care of her and her family. And while I was there, it just so happened her husband called and said he was safe and he was going to try and make it across the river down to New Jersey. She called me, I don't know, it doesn't matter when she called me. It wasn't the next day, it wasn't the next week. But she called me and thanked me for that meal that I brought over. I didn't do anything big. I just made I think I made spaghetti. I know I made brownies, and she made a big deal over the brownies and how she needed the brownies. And having the food storage and having the skills and knowing how to cook the food that I had stored played a big role in being able to serve her. And I have said it so many times, and I will say it on every single podcast I ever do. When you have the skills to take care of yourself, to take care of your family, you can take care of your community as well. Because again, you have options. Preparedness creates options, and options create peace. And in this case, the options created peace for a family that was scared to death. I am not saying that to toot my own horn. I have other experiences where people have done the same for me to serve me. So it goes all the different ways, but having food to be able to serve other people is a great blessing. And I think that preparedness creates generosity as well. That's what preparedness does. That to me is more important than having the stuff. It's the fact that it creates the options, the generosity, the peace, all of it can come and we can work together and all of that too. All right, I'll stop with the preaching. Okay, a couple things. I have a little gift to give you to make your life a little easier. I made something really fun. I created the Joyfully Prepared Kitchen Helper GPT because sometimes our brains are simply done by dinner time. You can upload pantry photos or type in the ingredients you already have, and it helps you come up with meal ideas using your actual food, which is amazing because sometimes I swear the hardest part of dinner is just deciding what to make, right? It is for me. You open the fridge 17 times hoping a casserole fairy appeared. Nothing changes. It doesn't happen. There is no casserole fairy. And what I love about the kitchen helper is that it helps people use the food that they store instead of just collecting it, because food storage only becomes valuable when it becomes meals. I'll link that, like I said, in the show notes. My friends, I believe these old-fashioned kitchen skills are becoming important again. They really always were important, but now these are the foods that are less expensive. These are the foods that are more filling and have so much more nutrition in them. Not because we're going backwards, but because they help families become more stable during financial stressful times. And you do not have to learn everything at once. I'm not that girl. You know that. Please hear me on that. You do not need to suddenly become a perfect homesteading woman grinding wheat berries barefoot at sunrise. I do not do that. And you don't have to do that either. Definitely wear shoes. Absolutely not. Just start small. Learn one skill, cook one new thing, use one pantry ingredient differently, because tiny skills build confidence and confidence creates peace. Confidence, preparedness, options, it all goes together and it's exciting and joyful and wonderful and so full of abundance. Thank you so much for joining me today, my friends. I love you. Thank you. Enjoy your day.